Hi, I'm August Keller, and this is my review of The Monkey. So, I think The Monkey is playfully nihilistic, which sounds like a contradiction, but it's good at juxtaposing emotions. So, the plot is pretty thin, but the story still is able to weave in a good amount of drama, themes, and a lot of dark humor. It's centered around a high concept with clear rules and mounting stakes. There's always like this looming threat that gets more and more threatening. The protagonist is arguably one note. There's not a whole lot to him, but he is sympathetic. He's motivated by at least one relationship. I would say maybe even more. And he completes an arc. And he's not the only one that completes an arc. He completes an arc with those a couple of those people in his relationships. The movie is very irreverent. Some might call it snarky, but I found it more like irreverent. And despite that, it still considers a lot of deep ideas. Death, like the fragility of life, chaos, like just the universe is chaos, acceptance, the power of acceptance, and generational trauma. It's kind of a metaphor for that. The jokes are very devilish. Like I said, they're dark. It's almost like black humor. So if you're into that, I am. So I think it's that when it's done right is really takes a lot of skill. But yeah, it's very absurd, and it's very cleverly built. There's a lot of setup and payoff. Like there's a lot of layers to the setup and payoff too, which is another sign of good writing, in my opinion. There's earned exposition, a lot of foreshadowing, unpredictability, and because there's a good amount of twists. And the acting reinforces the contrasting moods. Like I said, it's very juxtaposing. Comedy, horror, those are basically the two ends of the spectrum, and this movie pulls it off. And the acting helps with that because it has a lot of intensity, a lot of comedic timing, but it's always played seriously, and there's just enough vulnerability to tie it all together. So yeah, all that is to say that I think The Monkey really oozes personality, which is great, especially when it's done well and with a lot of substance, or a good amount of substance. Technically, I think The Monkey is also very stylish. It really accentuates that personality. It hits a very precise comedy horror tone. Like I said, I think that's a really tough mark to hit. In my opinion, it might be the hardest tone to hit. And it hits it. It has maybe a little bit of camp. I'm not really sure but I could think some could argue that there's camp in it. There's surrealism, and the set pieces. I think people like in horror movies, they like to talk about the kills. The set pieces is what I'll call them here. They're very splattery, and they're very creative too. I think a lot of times that's a pitfall for horror movies. They think just violence is enough, but when the violence is done very creatively and like really surprises you, that makes it memorable. The imagery, the cinematography is very heightened. There's a lot of lighting and angles and framing, spacing, focus, things like that. It's almost constantly doing things like that. The editing has a really nice tight runtime, and it really pops with a lot of like dissolves, like superimposing over each other. There's good intercuts, a lot of match cuts, which I'm a sucker for, and a lot of inserts, like a lot of like potent inserts. The production design conveys a lot of grungy atmosphere. It's a lot of clutter, and like intentionally so, but it's like got a lot of personality to the clutter. And I also thought that the iconography was pretty memorable. The monkey itself is you recognize that monkey. The music I think had a lot of range to it, a lot of juxtaposing needle drops that were pretty eclectic. The scoring is very tense, but kind of rides that line with comedy too. And there's this reoccurring motif. It's like a kind of circus jingle that the monkey plays. The sound design has smash cuts, voiceovers, a lot of violence, distortions like muffling, emphasis, echoes, and a lot of stings, sometimes for scares and sometimes for comedy. So it really, the sound design is very exaggerated. The cast, I would say, has middling fame. The lead, his name escapes me, but I've seen him around, but I wouldn't call him a star. But there are fun cameos, and I think there's a good against type fit. Like that lead, he plays a character that I haven't seen him play before, and he's not the only one who goes against type. The effects, I was pleased to see, had a good amount of practical effects, digital too, but when they work together, I think they really synergize. So it's practical and digital, and together they really create a lot of cartoonish bursts of gore, which I think really are, the selling point of this movie, or at least one of them. So yeah, I think The Monkey is very flavorful, and it's currently my favorite movie of the year. I know we're only 2 months in, so it's not saying a whole lot, but I could see it ending up in my top 20, top 30, in that range. It's a good movie, and I liked it a lot. I think I even kind of loved it, and I would recommend it to anyone who's looking for horror comedy, especially. Those are hard to come by, and I think this is a really good one. Okay, well, that's all I have to say about that. If you like what I'm doing here, please feel free to like and subscribe. I also have an Instagram linked in the description. I would love support there or here. Whatever you can do, I appreciate. But at the very least, I appreciate you watching, and I'll see you next time. Okay, thanks. Bye.